Ever notice how after a trip, you don't just feel rested, you feel changed somehow?
Sounds like you've leveled up.
Exactly. So we're diving into this Medium article, The Positive Effects of Traveling by LucieArt. They argue that travel's more than a vacation, it's a personal investment. What do you think?
Absolutely. It's an investment in your own growth, your perspective, even your health.
LucieArt starts off talking about expanding horizons, which, okay, we've all heard that before. But then they hit you with this idea of intercultural competence. And I'm like, all right, now you're speaking my language.
Right. It's not just about snapping some pics for Instagram. It's about really understanding and appreciating different cultures.
And not accidentally offending the locals when you order a beer in a pub in, say, Dublin.
We'll just blame that one on the jet lag, shall we?
Hey, I'm a fast learner. But seriously, the article makes a good point. This intercultural competence thing, it's becoming essential in our globalized world.
Totally. Think about it. Workplaces are more diverse. Communities are more interconnected. Being able to navigate different cultural landscapes, that's a huge EE asset.
So it does kind of like that saying, a year abroad is worth 4 years of college, but applicable to anyone regardless of age who travels with intention.
Exactly. And this isn't just anecdotal. The article cites studies linking travel to increased empathy and social tolerance.
Which is us so needed these days, right? With all the division and fear-mongering.
Yeah.
Maybe what we need is more exposure to the unknown to realize we're not actually that different.
Couldn't agree more. It's about challenging our own preconceived notions, which are often formed from afar. When we immerse ourselves in different ways of life, we gain a more nuanced and compassionate understanding of the world.
Which brings us to LucieArt's point about self-discovery.
Yeah.
We've all felt that post-trip confidence boost, but the article digs into the WHY behind it, and that's where it gets really interesting.
Because it's not just about the souvenirs or the tan lines. It's about being pushed outside your comfort zone. When you're navigating a new city or figuring out public transport in a foreign country, you're forced to adapt, to problem solve on the fly.
It's like that time I got completely, and I mean completely lost in Venice.
I bet that's a story for another time.
Maybe. But the point is, there's something about those oh crap travel moments that forces you to rely on your instincts, your ability to handle whatever comes your way.
And that's where the real growth happens. Because that newfound self-reliance, that's not a trinket you pick up at a tourist trap. That's a skill you carry with you long after you've unpacked your suitcase.
You come home less afraid to take risks, to make decisions, because you've proven to yourself that you can handle the unexpected.
Exactly. And sometimes, let's be honest, we travel just to escape the daily grind, to hit that mental reset button.
And LucieArt gets that. In fact, they make a really compelling case for the mental health benefits of travel.
Which, in our constantly connected, always-on world, are more important than ever.
It's like our brains weren't designed to handle this nonstop barrage of information and stimulation.
Right. And the article highlights how important it is to disconnect from technology, even if just for a little while.
To reconnect with ourselves and the world around us. And they specifically call out the benefits of nature, like actually getting out into the great outdoors.
Which makes sense, right? Our bodies crave that connection to nature.
You know, it's funny because even just thinking about being out in nature, like surrounded by mountains, maybe a lake.
Oh, yeah.
With only the sounds of like birds and stuff, it's like my blood pressure goes down instantly.
Well, and there's actually science behind that, right? Like the article mentions studies about how spending time in nature can actually lower your cortisol levels.
Which is the stress hormone.
Exactly. And it can even boost your immune system. So
it's like a physical thing, too.
It's a total reset for your mind and body.
Wow. See, LucieArt wasn't kidding about travel being an investment, and then they take it even further. Talking about how all the physical activity we tend to do when we travel, like, plays a big role, too.
Oh, absolutely. Because even if you're not, specifically going on a hiking trip, just exploring a new city on foot.
Right.
All that walking and moving around, it adds up.
And it's not like I'm just walking to the bakery every morning for a croissant.
No.
Okay, maybe sometimes.
I'm not judging.
But I get what you mean. We are just naturally more active when we travel.
Right, and that has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So the article talks about how it can improve your cardiovascular health, strengthen your immune system, help you sleep better. It's basically a free tune-up for your body.
Which, let's be real, a lot of us probably need after, sitting at a desk all day.
For sure.
But it's not just to viv out our physical energy, though, is it? LucieArt also talks about travel being like fuel for our creativity.
Oh, 100%. And this is something I find super interesting.
Well, because as someone who writes, like, all the time, I'm always looking for ways to,
To stay inspired.
yeah, to avoid writer's block. So this part of the article really jumped out at me.
Well, it makes sense when you think about it. Because new experiences, especially those that push us outside of our normal routines, they really shake things up in our brains.
It's like all those new sights, sounds, smells, even tastes, right?
Exactly. And according to the article, this kind of sensory overload can actually help our brains form new neural pathways.
Okay, so maybe instead of just staring at my computer screen, willing the words to come, I should book a flight to, like, Japan or something.
There you go.
Soak up some inspiration from, like, the Zen gardens or whatever.
I mean, hey, it couldn't hurt. And you're not alone in this. Like, think about all the famous artists, writers, musicians
Oh, right.
who found inspiration through travel. Hemingway in Paris,
Okay. Yeah.
Georgia O'Keeffe in New Mexico, even the Beatles, they found their sound in India.
Wow. Okay, you've convinced me. I'm adding
Didn't you?
Find My Muse to my next itinerary for sure.
Yes.
But speaking of inspiration, LucieArt also touches on something that always gets me. That human connection you experience when you travel.
Oh, absolutely. Those chance encounters, the conversations you have with people from totally different walks of life,
Right, right.
they can really stick with you.
It's like this really beautiful reminder that, like, no matter where we go in the world, we're all just kind of figuring it out as we go.
Exactly. And even just those brief interactions can have a huge impact.
Yeah.
They broaden our perspectives, challenge our assumptions, sometimes in ways we never even expected.
And I think there's something about being in a new environment that makes people, like, more open to those kinds of connections.
100%. You're out of your comfort zone. You're more present, more open to new experiences, new people.
And LucieArt even says that these interactions can make us more adaptable and open-minded in our everyday lives. So it's like this positive feedback loop.
It is. You travel, you have these amazing encounters, and then you bring that openness and adaptability back home with you.
It really is amazing, how one conversation with a stranger in a different country can totally shift your whole perspective.
It's true.
Like, I'm always so impressed by how open people are to sharing when you're traveling.
I think there's just something about being outside your comfort zone
Right.
that makes people more, like, vulnerable, more open.
Yeah.
And that creates the space for these really authentic connections.
Totally. It's like, oh, remember that time I got lost hiking in the Scottish Highlands?
Let me guess. You stumbled upon a mystical bagpipe playing unicorn.
Ah. Mm-hmm. No unicorns, sadly. But I did run into a shepherd and his dog who, pointed me in the right
I
direction.
don't know, was the dog wearing a tiny kilt?
No, that would have been something. But really, it wasn't just about finding my way back. It was more like the shepherd was just so kind,
Okay.
and he was telling me all these stories about the land, and, like, he had this really dry sense of humor, and I don't know, it really stuck with me.
And that's the thing. Sometimes those little encounters, they end up being the most memorable parts of a trip.
Totally. Way more meaningful than a souvenir,
Right. And that actually reminds me of how LucieArt wraps up the article. They talk about how the real souvenirs, the ones that matter,
Yeah.
they're not things you pack in your suitcase. They're the memories you make, the insights you gain, the connections you forge.
It's like you're coming home a slightly different version of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those are the true return on investment of travel. A broader perspective, a stronger sense of self, a deeper connection to the world around you.
Well said. So, to everyone listening who's now daydreaming about their next adventure,
Me included.
what kind of personal investment are you hoping for? Will you come home feeling more creative, more connected to a different culture? Or maybe, just maybe, you'll have one of those chance encounters that totally changes your perspective.
Ooh, I like that.
Keep that in mind when you're planning your next trip. Because as we've learned, travel is so much more than just a vacation. It's an investment in, well, you.